So, a new executive order is taking aim at the synthetic opioid crisis, and it's doing it by targeting international trade. But what does it actually do, and, will it even work? Welcome to our breakdown of Executive Order 1495. I'm Ethan Caldwell, and I'll be getting into the nuts and bolts of the policy.
And I'm Nora Harper. My job is to look at the human side of all this. Together, we're going to walk you through exactly what this order says, how it's supposed to work, and what it could mean for all of us, both here and around the world. So let's start with the problem this whole thing is trying to solve.
Every policy, every single one, starts with a problem. So in this first part, we're really going to unpack the why behind this executive order. We're going to look at the devastating human cost of the opioid crisis and some really serious international accusations that are driving this new policy forward. The order opens by painting a really grim picture. It states that synthetic opioids are killing approximately 200 Americans every single day. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's not a yearly statistic. That is the daily toll this crisis is taking on families and communities all across the country. And it goes even further to show just how big this emergency is. The order identifies synthetic opioid overdose as the #1 killer for Americans between 18 and 45. When you hear that, it totally reframes this. It's not just a public health issue anymore. It's a crisis that's literally threatening an entire generation. Okay, so the order then pivots from that tragic domestic crisis to what it claims is the international source. And the language it uses is, well, it's incredibly direct. It claims the People's Republic of China, or PRC, is actively sustaining and expanding the business of poisoning American citizens. That is a very strong accusation, and it really sets the stage for the actions the order is about to propose. And the order doesn't just stop at one general accusation. Oh no, it lays out a whole list of very specific claims. It alleges that the PRC is subsidizing companies that make these precursor chemicals, that it's providing a safe haven for criminal organizations, and that it's just ignoring money laundering. The document even argues that China has the ability to stop this flow, but is actively choosing not to. So, given these incredibly serious accusations, what does the order actually do? Well, the core strategy here is all about economic pressure. So in this next section, we're going to break down exactly how that pressure gets applied. Before we get to the action itself, we need to quickly define a key term you'll see in the order: ad valorem tariff. I know, it might sound complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. Unlike a flat tax on an item, an ad valorem tariff is based on how much that item is worth. Just think of it like a sales tax, but for imports. It's a percentage of the total value. And this brings us right to the central action of the order, a new additional 10% ad valorem tariff. So this is a 10% tax on top of any duties that are already in place, and it applies to pretty much all goods that are imported from the PRC. So how does this actually happen legally? Well, it's a three-step process. First, the president declares a national emergency under something called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. This is what gives the executive branch really broad authority to regulate commerce when there's a crisis. Second, that new authority is used to impose the 10% tariff. And third, the Department of Homeland Security gets the order to make the official rule changes to put it all into effect. Simple as that. All right, so we've covered the problem and the proposed action. Now for the really big question. What does this actually mean for everybody? In our final section, we're going to look at the potential ripple effects of this policy, from the prices you pay at the store all the way to the world stage. What's really interesting is that the order itself fully anticipates a response from China. Section 2C basically builds in an escalation clause. It says that if the PRC retaliates with its own tariffs on U.S. goods, the president has the authority to increase this 10% tariff or even expand its scope. It's a clear signal that this is intended as a first step in a potential chess match, not necessarily the last. And this is where it all comes together in the real world. First, that 10% tariff on goods from China. Yeah, that could mean higher prices for consumers on a whole lot of products. And like Ethan just mentioned, there's the very real potential for a trade war to escalate. But, and this is important, the order also includes what you could call an off-ramp. Section 3 says the tariffs will be removed if the president decides China has taken sufficient action to help solve the opioid crisis. And this really brings us to the fundamental question at the heart of this entire policy. It's using a powerful economic tool, tariffs, to fight a truly devastating public health crisis. Is this kind of economic pressure going to be enough to compel another nation to act? And ultimately, can it save lives? That's really the central debate this executive order kicks into motion. Thanks for joining our breakdown.